Okay, so good morning, everybody. My name is Lorenzo Pupillo. We are all, many of us already know each other. And today we will discuss this, we will present the report by StrategEast on the Ukrainian digital resistance. But, I decided to put also these two important words, cyber resilience and digital diplomacy at work, because I think that reading this report is extremely interesting to find out what's happening in Ukraine, and also for the future of cybersecurity in Europe. I think that we all agree that Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine on 24th of February 2022 has shocked many for its brutality. However, after more than 80 days of war, the Ukrainians have shown not only a fierce resistance on the battlefield, but also a great resilience on the digital infrastructure, especially in the cyber realm. We have to say that against the expectation of many, cyber attacks since the invasions have been limited in scope and scale in Ukraine. And, usually, the explanation is given is that, Putin had different plans. He thought the invasion was easy and he was going to get a quick control of the whole territory. And therefore, he needed to keep the communication, in general, the civil infrastructure running. But I think that there is a, more important explanation that instead, this is the result of the fact that repelling Russian cyber attacks and increasing the digital resilience of the state were critically important steps taken by the Ukrainian government. And what is important, the Ukrainian government started years ago to increase the Ukrainian cybersecurity posture, capitalizing also on the fact that the Ukrainians are very adept to digital. And as we will find out from the report, they put in place several important measures. Overall, I think that the conclusion that we can draw from this situation that investing in cyber resilience it's paying. This is extremely important because sometimes, we think that, cyber attack, cannot be avoided, cannot be managed. Instead, this situation is showing the opposite to some extent. There are some interesting lessons that we can learn from this situation. First of all, I will say that this is an example of what in cybersecurity we always call for, a great public-private partnership, okay, between the government and the private sector. We had, Microsoft provided threat analysis, Tesla, Starlink connection. The EU has sent experts from the rapid response team, have been deployed in Ukraine, adding to the support provided by the US, other countries. It's extremely important. The US secretly removed malware worldwide, disrupting botnets. And, at the domestic level, almost in each country, the cybersecurity agency put forward warning to get ready, to get prepared to potential attack. But we have to say that there are also some critical issues. It's important to discuss because, we are hosting as a think tank, CEPS, this event. So it's important also to look at maybe some there are potentially some, downside of the situation. The integrity of the domain system was put in question to some extent. Ukraine asked ICANN to revoke the top-level domains of the Russian Federation and the SSL certification for this domain, and to shut down DNS root servers located in the Russian Federation. These attacks, although were limited in scope and in the magnitude, put forward again the issue of technical attribution. Is still an open issue, and this probably requires a better improving the sharing of information among countries. Cyber attacks against civilian asset infrastructure pose a serious risk of spillover effect and collateral damage In other words, cybersecurity has its spillover effect, the attacks. This need to be taken into account. Call for volunteers. We know that, for instance, we will see this, the Ukrainian government made this call for IT experts. This, from one side, is positive, but so this call for volunteers in the world have raised question. Attacks launched from one country can get out of control. Some scholars, for instance, underline the call for foreigners to attack a country's critical infrastructure may undermine the United Nations normal responsible behavior process. And also, some experts say, can individuals who attack or defend military targets could be treated as combatant and therefore escalate the conflict? So, to deep dive all these issues, we are very pleased today to host this event. And we have a great panel here. Will features Anatoly Motkin is the founder and president of StrategEast. Alexander Borniakov, Deputy Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine. Lorena Boix-Alonso, Director for Digital Society, Trust and Cybersecurity DigiConnect. Lisa Fur, Director General of Letton, and Adam Pick, Senior Manager for Civil Society Engagement. As I suggest in my email to the panelists, we will start with a brief presentation, like 7-8 minutes from Anatoly that will present the report, and then the speaker will follow. I will say the first part of the event will be focused on commenting the report, and then we'll open the discussion with some other questions. Okay, so Anatol, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Lorenzo, and thank you to Center of European Policy Studies for hosting this event. Just a second, I'll launch the share. So our last report is dedicated to Ukrainian digital resistance to Russian aggression, and I'm thankful also to Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine and to New Age Company for their support to having this report prepared. So just as a summary, the Ukrainian IT sector is one of the fastest developing sectors in Ukrainian economy, and also it's the most transparent, accountable sector in the entire economy of Ukraine. Ukraine enjoys a highly developed IT industry, and in 2021, 250,000 Ukrainian IT specialists delivered or generated close to $7 billion in exports, and it's about 10% of all exports of the country. And the process of government digital transformation is underway via presidential state and a smartphone program. After the Russian invasion began, the Ministry of Digital Transformation gave preference to projects repelling the aggression. Measures to enhance national digital resilience have been taken, launched hundreds of applications supporting civilians and army, implemented a number of initiatives to reinforce IT industry, etc. So the Minister of Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine said that while the Ukrainian army is heroically defending our motherland on the battlefield, our main task at the Ministry of Digital Transformation is to create a reliable digital backend. So about the cyber resilience. Layered system of cyber defense for the state IT infrastructure was created. Cooperation between the Ukrainian and British archival services on the temporary mode transferred the cloud or cloud of data storage. It means all the archive information from Ukraine was copied to UK for any case to be recovered. New format of electronic identity was created to preserve access to digital documents when state registers are disabled. And we know that Ukraine experienced several cyber attacks on the archives of and digital services, state digital services from Russian side. On May 17th, Ukraine received a CyberSec award for the heroic resistance to the Russian aggression and the protecting digital front lines of the democratic world. About the digital diplomacy, we know that within the last years, most of the big tech companies were active not only in Ukraine and other countries, but also in Russia. And after the Russian act of aggression and invasion to Ukraine, global tech giants such as Amazon, Apple, Google, and many others have joined the digital embargo on Russia. And this huge achievement is many thanks to the systematic work from the Ministry of Digital Transformation, who actually addressed directly each one of those tech giants and explained them that actually it's not proper to keep working in Russia and providing them with technologies when Russia became the most aggressive actor regionally, both regionally and globally. Starlink access and terminals provided by Elon Musk. You understand that physical infrastructure like the cellular providers' equipment was hit by Russian attacks, some of it. And the Starlink access assisted to cellular providers and other internet providers to fast recover the abilities and to recover the access for Ukrainian population to those services. And also PayPal launched operations in Ukraine, which was actually a result of both a systemic work for the last years from the ministry and also other companies, private sector in Ukraine. And definitely the last incentive and trigger was the Russian invasion to the country. Fundraising and mobilizing international assistance. The Ukrainian crypto fund raised over $60 million, being the biggest crypto donations drive so far in history. Meta History NFT Museum was launched to preserve the memory of wartime, which is also important, but also raised funds in support of Ukraine. And the last project, which is kind of funny, is Send Putin to Jupiter fundraising campaign for building a rocket to launch Vladimir Putin to Jupiter, the most, the planet with the biggest amount of gas in the space that we know, at least in our galaxy. And it raised over $2 million. Supporting the IT industry, and it's one of the most important things in this presentation, is to assist to Ukrainian IT industry, not only to keep its abilities, but also to scale it up. To scale both to enlarge number of projects to be developed in Ukraine by international customers, but also to scale up the Ukrainian startups and product companies worldwide, abroad. Allow and reduce the tax burden was adopted by the government, and it's important to, again, to ease the activity for those companies who actually suffer from all the events that follow the Russian invasion. The criteria for DS city residents, and I just mentioned that DS city is a special tax and legislative regime for IT companies working in Ukraine. It actually allowed to Ukrainian IT companies or IT sector to become the first absolutely transparent, accountable sector for the entire economy and became a role model for other sectors in this matter. So you need tax and legal regime for the IT industry, even those conditions were simplified within the wartime. An IT Nation training program was developed to support 3,000 Ukrainians in switching to IT. We know that millions of Ukrainians are actually internally displaced persons. Even those who didn't leave the country, they were forced to leave their own houses and their own towns. And this program is actually assists them to get a new profession and to be able to get a new job remotely. Supporting the army. eWork program, Stop Russian War Bot, and Bachu, which in Ukraine means I see, platform launched to report armed forces of Ukraine on the movements of enemy troops. UA Veteran Bot created to support combatants and their families in searching ammunition and humanitarian aid. And again, another funny app, Bayraktar, and it's a name, as you know, of a small air vehicle produced in Turkey and used by Ukrainian army to hit Russian army, is a function. They developed an app that actually assists to any Ukrainian to have kind of illusion that he controlling the combat UAV Bayraktar during the wartime. Now, supporting civilians. eDopomoa platform and humanitarian aid portal were created to organize the process of collecting and distributing humanitarian aid, which is important. A-Raid Siren app released to alert users about the civil defense alarms, and we have many, unfortunately, in Ukraine. And Mariupol Now status bot launched to provide the residents of partly occupied Mariupol, and unfortunately it's close to be absolutely fully occupied, with relevant information on the current situation in the city. Gathering evidence of war crimes. We know that Russians try to present the documents on their atrocities and war crimes in Ukraine as a fakes produced by Ukraine, by Western special services, and so on and so forth. So it makes even more important to collect those evidences to be used afterwards in international courts and tribunals. The DOCAS portal launched to collect evidences of crimes committed by Russian military forces is works, and platform Moya Vina, which in translation from Ukrainian means My War, allows Ukrainians to describe their personal experiences during the war and to tell about the war crimes they witnessed. And just a brief policy recommendations on our side. For international financial institutions and global development agencies, it's important to support a large-scale educational program that we describe, which aims to create 3,000 new jobs in Ukrainian IT industry, the IT nation, but also to invest in digital infrastructure in Ukraine. It's the only, actually, the only infrastructure. And when I'm saying about the infrastructure, I'm talking also about the human infrastructure, not only physical infrastructure, that actually is not as challenged by Russian attacks as any other physical infrastructure in Ukraine. And the country that lost almost 45% of their GDP, it's important to assist them to recover at least at the sector that is less vulnerable to Russian attacks. For global tech companies, it's important to join the sanctions imposed by Western countries on Russia, continue to consider Ukraine as a trusted IT vendor, and open access to their services to citizens of Ukraine. For foreign governmental institutions, it's important to simplify the documentation flow with Ukraine by recognizing Ukrainian digital documents. Ukraine has a state services app, which is called DIA, and actually it allows to use the electronic documents like the driver's license, the passport, the ID within Ukraine. Now it's important for people who maybe lost their physical documents and are unable to issue them to use those digital copies confirmed by the governmental tool and app of Ukraine to be able to use them abroad. Thank you for your attention. I'd be happy to answer the following questions. Thank you.
Okay, Anatoly, thank you very much. I think that what is striking me is this idea of the really holistic approach that is coming out from this presentation. In other words, not it's just focus on specific initiative, but as you know, tends to increase cyber resilience, but also digital skill, financial support, and so on. I think this is an extremely important issue. I would like to give the floor now to Mr. Bornyakov for his comment.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, hi everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the Center of European and Policy Studies for the research on the Ukrainian digital resistance, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak about the struggle of Ukraine for its freedom and democratic values. Well, for more than 80 days now, Ukraine has been demonstrating heroic resilience, fighting against Russian fascist invaders on every possible front. Well, and to be more specific, the war in Ukraine has been ongoing for 80 years now. Russia attacked us in 2014 and occupied part of our territories. All this time, Ukraine had been fighting for its territories and repelling cyber attacks, in countless cyber attacks. But this never stopped us from developing and making our country better. And for the past 2 years, we have been working to transform Ukraine into a most convenient country for the citizens and business. And the results we have already achieved are impressive. 80 digital services moved, 80 analog services moved to digital. We introduced first in the world digital passports in a mobile app, which is equal to the paper one legally. The fastest business registration, like you can register business in 15 minutes. One of our key projects for business was unique tax and legal space for IT companies called DA-City, which Anatoly mentioned before. We managed to create one of the best conditions for developing technology business in Europe. And there are more than 225 companies already in DA-City. And what is important, that more than 100 of them joined during the wartime. Having this in mind, our goal is to build a large high-tech IT hub in Ukraine. And we have everything for this. Our IT specialists are considered to be among the best in the world. Even now, in extreme conditions, they continue to work and fulfill contracts, create jobs and important products for our country and for their customers. They pay taxes and brought just $2 billion in the first quarter, despite of the war situation. This is why it's very difficult. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's it. And this is, we have to understand that this is very difficult while they bombing and shelling us with artillery and ballistic rockets. And to fight on the cyber front, in the early days of war, we have formed an IT army that consists more than 275,000 people from around the world with different skills, and they work almost around the clock to prevent the spread of Kremlin propaganda, disrupt the operation of their government and their politicians. Also on the nation front, alongside with the crypto platform Kuna, which is Ukrainian crypto exchange, and Ukraine-based company Everstake and international crypto exchange FTX, we have launched the crypto fund called Aid for Ukraine. And with this fund, we managed to raise more than $65 million so far. Anatoly told also about that. And a crypto proved to be a real life saver because we were able to cover immediate needs for the armed forces of Ukraine, for the Ministry of Health, and with collected crypto donation, we've provided Ukrainian army with loads of thousands of bulletproof vests, medikits, walkie-talkies, food rations, helmets, thermal imagers, different kind of optics, and each and every helmet and bulletproof vest bought via crypto fund, where crypto donations are currently saving Ukrainian soldiers' life. Another great project, which also Anatoly mentioned about, is Meta History NFT Museum, launched by the Ukrainian blockchain community with the support of a ministry. And the goal of the NFT museum is to preserve the memory of wartime events and raise funds in support of Ukraine. So far, this fund managed to raise more than $800,000. And I want to thank all countries and companies that support Ukraine in this difficult time and donate millions of dollars. Another important area of the digital war is communicating with the global technologies company. We have already approached more than 500 technology companies of the world and received support from companies like Apple, PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, Microsoft, Airbnb, Binance, Meta, Intel, SpaceX, and many others. We must urge international companies to take drastic action necessary to isolate the aggressor. When the whole world found out about the atrocities of the Russian army and Ukrainian citizens, everything became clear. It is possible to maintain, it's impossible to maintain the neutral position. Every company that works for the people and talks about supporting democratic and humanitarian values should stop any business relations with Russia. If the company is silent, then it supports the aggressor in finance and killing of the civilians. The support of the international community and the firm position of each state, company, and the person is invaluable. After all, today Ukraine is fighting not just for itself, but for the whole world, in which there is no place for fashions. We are grateful to everyone for supporting and urge to do not stop. Thank you all.
Thank you, Alex. Not only for completing, what Anatoly said, but also because, I get the feeling that you are not only, making strong the resistance, but you have a vision for the future, and this is extremely important because, your future is anchored in this digital transformation process. I think is extremely important. Now, I would like to give the floor to Lorena to, to his comment and what the European Commission thinks about.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo, and thank you for organizing this. I think that the first thing I have to say is to express my admiration and respect for the Ukrainian authorities and on how they are really managing this. It's really impressive, and of course all of our support. There has been a lot of commentaries and debates about the cyber aspects of this invasion. And some people say, well, we were expecting a cyber war. Some even were expecting only a cyber war and not a physical invasion. And there are, of course, plenty of different theories of why those that believe this doesn't have the impact that many of us expected. Why is this the case? Why the Russian Federation has not gone tougher? I'm not going into that. I just want to mention two things with respect to this debate. One is that now, because it's public, we need to say it, there has been something which is quite serious and where the reaction has been quite coordinated, which is the declaration by the High Representative on behalf of the European Union on the condemning and attributing the attack to the satellite KSAT of Viasat and attributing it really to the Russian Federation and recognizing that it has affected several member states and highlighting the risk of spillover that you were mentioning before. So here we have an example where this is not just the hacktivists, but something serious that has happened. The other comment I wanted to make is, and you made it yourself already, Lorenzo, is that of course many were expecting more things or not, but something that I think has to be highlighted, and I'm happy you did, is that of course the Ukrainian colleagues have been able to handle this. And this is because of many years of preparations, and this is something that we need to highlight. Maybe nothing bigger has happened also because this is being handled very well. Now, in terms of impact, I think I'm with you of the holistic aspect of not only what the Ukrainian colleagues are doing, but also what the European is doing to try to support. Here it's interesting to see that in the support that we are providing and the cooperation we are having, it's not strictly only cyber, because it's cyber only doesn't help much. In the field of cyber, of course, immediately money was mobilized very, very quickly. And it's interesting to see how the type of actions that we were identifying together with the colleagues in Ukraine just before the invasion, how different they are from the support activities during the invasion. In terms of identifying the type of actions, it's very interesting to see also from our side, also in terms of lessons learned. The first type of actions were honestly very similar to the type of support that whatever member state needs, really, and I will not mention, but if you read our Digital Europe program and the building of resilience, it's very similar to the type of things that we were working with the colleagues of Ukraine. But then once the invasion was there, of course, the focus is completely different in the type of needs. And of course, connectivity is essential. I will not develop that because I'm sure that Lisa will go into that direction. So I leave it to her because there's little time. But to mention other type of actions that are absolutely necessary, like the actions on disinformation, absolutely necessary. We're starting with the sanctions imposed on on Russia Today and on Sputnik, and going then to the actions that we're taking in the European Digital Media Observatory to identify to do fact-finding, warnings about false information. This is extremely important, the contacts with the platform. So this is, and also I think the actions to improve broadcasting of Ukrainian content, not only in Ukraine, but also in the European Union, so that the Ukrainian content is prioritized and has access. So all these type of things are extremely important. I mentioned already the facilitating the life of refugees. And on this, I know it's not cyber, but it's in my directorate as well. First, to praise the DIA app. This is basically what we are trying to do in the European Union, to have an app where you have not only your identification documents, but all of the type of attributes like driving license, whatever, prescriptions, that we are working with the Ukrainian authorities, in particular to use the EU COVID certificate app to be able to read the code of the e-identity of the DIA app. So we are working already on this, and this is perfectly feasible, by the way, and very easy for every member state because they have already the verifying app. So this is something on which we are working, and then of course in more long term to have real recognition of the e-identity means, and we have already accepted and brought in the Ukrainian colleagues in our expert group on e-identity. So we are working on all these fronts and more. I know I only have 7 minutes, so I stop. But of course, all this has have an impact on how we in the European Union see our level of preparedness and our level of operational cooperation in case spillovers become really important. Just to mention, we will continue and go more in depth in the debate if I don't have to leave before, but that this has prompted, of course, calls from member states in Nevers, for example, where there was a call for a cyber emergency fund. There was a call for an urgent increase of cyber resilience of our infrastructure. So you see a reaction also on the EU side, but we can go more in depth on the EU side later in the debate.
Okay, thanks, Lorena. So now we'll give the floor to Lisa from General Director from ETNO, and she can bring the private sector perspective in this picture.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Lisa Fuhr, the Director General of ETNO, which is the association representing Europe's main telecom operators. As Lorenzo was saying, I will bring the telecom perspective to the debate. But before I start, I'd like to say a few personal words. As a Danish and European citizen, I'm deeply saddened and hurt by the aggression that Ukraine is enduring. And I admire the strength, determination, and dignity of the Ukrainian people. And I don't think it's rhetoric to say that you are setting an example for all of us. I think the report also showed the pace that Ukraine was able to adapt a digital defense to the terrible circumstances. And that's truly impressive. If I am quickly to bring it to the institutional part of my intervention, I'm proud that back in February, the European telecom industry took swift actions to put out measures for Ukrainian expats and for refugees. The measures included free and reduced communication services, distribution of SIM cards, free Wi-Fi in refugee camps, but also boosting mobile signals in bordering countries and more practical humanitarian measures. And I'm also very grateful to the European Commission, to DG Connect, and to the body of European telecom regulators, BEREC. They also stepped up immediately to help us in all of this. And most of the voluntary measures I described are now enshrined in a joint commitment with the Ukrainian operators. Third, I want to share a big thank you with Deputy Minister Bonyakov. Your government, your regulators, and your operators also engaged with the European companies to speed up these solutions, despite the difficulties you are working while under attack. So now we discuss what the report also mentioned, the cyber resilience and the security. And I think there are three very important aspects here. The first one is, of course, the integrity of the networks. The aggression against Ukraine was a wake-up call to all of the country's networks. And we need to be resilient, not only in face of natural disasters, accidents, or extraordinary terrorist attack, but we also need to face a potential military disruption. So the Ukraine crisis showed us the importance of the infrastructure. So I think we as telcos are highly aware of the needs of network equipment that Ukraine has. And I know that our members, vendors and operators have already worked on some of this, and some of them have reinforced the infrastructure at the borders. And we highly appreciate the support that the European governments and the Commission are able to provide on this. The second learning point is on cybersecurity, which of course has already been high on the agenda of the telecoms. But however, since February, we have seen a deeper and higher sense of urgency, especially in the role of state actors in sponsoring cyber attacks. The already high alert in the telecom companies have been put even higher, and they stand ready to continue working with governments and relevant agencies to ensure that we protect the critical services and infrastructure that our citizens must be able to use every day. And I think the most vulnerable to cyber attacks remain the services, but we should never underestimate the threat to communication and networks. Third and last learning point is about the geopolitics of the internet. As Edno, we have been committed to defending an open and decentralized internet, one that is governed by a multi-stakeholder governance. And that dynamic we have seen unfolding in the past month make it clear that we must further step up our efforts in defending this model in all international fora. We are and we will remain closely coordinated with the European Commission and governments on this topic. And I think in this context, it's extremely important to continue recognizing the essential value of communications and connectivity. And they should continue to be open, unrestricted across countries and jurisdictions. To conclude very quickly, the European telecom industry stands ready to continue to help Ukrainian people. And we have stepped up our efforts, including at home on cyber resilience and cybersecurity. The collaboration between industry and the European Commission is very close on these matters. And we will keep being united in face of the extraordinary challenges that we are seeing today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Liz. Now I would like to give the floor to Adam Peake, Senior Manager Civil Society Engagement from ICANN. And I hope they will address also this issue related to, to the DNS and so on.
Thank you, Lorenzo. Good morning, everybody. I do apologize if I look a little bit strange. The weather in The Hague is extremely sunny this morning, and we took down the curtains to clean them. Particularly bad timing, but anyway, hello everybody. Yes, I work for ICANN. I'm responsible for our engagement with civil society and academia globally, and some responsibilities in Europe. Elena Plexida sent her apologies. She had another very pressing task to do. So Lorenzo, thank you for inviting me, and Anatoly. It's a fascinating report, and thank you for that. Minister Bonyanko, good morning, and my personal condolences. It's the war in Ukraine has shocked and saddened us, and we have the pleasure of working with many people from the Ukraine in the multi-stakeholder model that Lisa just mentioned. It would be a pleasure to tell you about them one day. They're fascinating and wonderful people, some good friends. But there's one group in particular I feel I should mention, and Anatoly, this goes, I think, to your report and something you might like to look at in the future, and that is the Hostmaster UA. Hostmaster take care of the country code top-level domain name for the Ukraine.ua, and they, as we've heard, have been preparing for many years, not for the very unfortunate eventualities we hear about today, but because they are one of the leading country code providers anywhere in the world. And the distributed systems that Hostmaster have put in place, the backups, the cloud infrastructure across the Ukraine with European and US partners means that Ukrainian infrastructure has largely remained in place, and at times when it hasn't been able to function independently, they've had all of the necessary backups to make sure that it has continued. So I think across the internet, we've probably seen pictures of Ukrainian engineers reconnecting cables that have been broken by shells and bombs. And once their work has been done, the packets that carry our communications, carry Ukrainian communications, has been able to flow because of the work of people like Hostmaster. So I think it's very important to notice this. And the domain has been subject to large scale DDoS attacks. The attacks have not affected the Ukrainian domain name system. Again, an indication of the security measures and preparation that's been put in place. So the Ukrainian domain name is stable, and the internet in the Ukraine is as strong as ever that we can see. So Anatoly, just a thought that this may be an aspect that you might like to look at. Now, yes, you mentioned Lorenzo about some work that ICANN's been doing and our response to the situation. Now, of course, ICANN's role is the technical coordinator of unique identifiers across the global internet. We take actions to ensure that how the internet works it is not politicized, and it's important to note that we do not have any sanctions levying authority, and no such authority has ever been envisaged for ICANN. It's never been part of our mandate, and there's no kill switch, and it's certainly one that's not on ICANN's desk. ICANN was built to ensure that the internet works, and that is essential to ensure global connectivity, not for our coordination role to be used to stop it from working. We're there to create the global interconnected internet. And while ICANN is critical to ensuring the internet actually does continue to work, our role is also limited. We do not have a role in controlling content. We don't control spam. We're not an internet police force. So that is important. We do not control the internet, as I mentioned. And I suppose in many ways you can think of the work that we do with our technical providers is providing the basis from which those who provide applications and services and content are able to operate, but we don't indicate how they take their actions. So if we want to discuss in a moment about disinformation and so on, it's a very difficult role for ICANN to get involved in. It's not something that we control or can work with. And let me think. So yeah, you mentioned a letter that was received from Deputy Prime Minister Fedorov, a letter sent to Yoram Marby shortly after the war began, and Yoram has explained that the question was, would ICANN take Russia off the internet, essentially? Would ICANN remove the .ru country code top-level domain name and also remove some of the SSL certificates? And Yoram explained in his response to Yoram Marby, our CEO, explained in his response to the Deputy Prime Minister, the domain name system can't operate on the basis of requests from one country or territory concerning internal operations with another country or territory, much as it's at times would would be something that one might like to do. But it's not the way we operate, it's not the mandate that we have. And changing this process would have a devastating and very permanent effect on the trust and utility of the global internet, which ICANN exists to create and to promote. From a technical standpoint, it's important also to remember that the internet is decentralized. It is a network of networks. So it's very difficult to try and take away one piece of that. And we might talk about that if we want to get on to discussions about fragmentation and splinter nets and so on. So I think the point is that the resiliency and security of the internet stems from the fact that by its design, it was created without a single point of failure. It's impossible for one actor to control the internet, and ICANN must resist any attempt for it to become that single actor. That one single actor that might control, and there should be no single actor that has a control over the internet. So for us, the global stakeholder model works for ICANN. We follow it closely and believe in it very, very strongly, and we believe that model should be maintained. So I hope that gives some indication of where we're sitting at the moment, and there are, of course, other aspects we can talk about. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Adam. So now we have about 10, 12 minutes for discussion. I think that Lorena left, and so let's maybe start. I have a question, but I would like to give the floor before to the panelists. If you want to interact, make some comments. I don't know if the deputy minister want make any comments to.
No, it's all right. Let's jump to discussion because we have so few
Yeah.
time left.
Okay. So any panelist would like to make comments on what has been said so far? Otherwise, I don't know. Let's see if there are any questions from the floor. Okay. Well, I have this question. I mean, it's a general question, maybe for everybody, but we can start. We mentioned that to some extent what's happening in Ukraine, the digital resistance, from Ukraine is an example for all the world. But so we should ask. Does this situation, does this Ukraine war represent a game changer for the European cybersecurity and the digital infrastructure policies? I don't know if Lisa, you want to answer this question.
Yes, certainly. A game changer is a big word, but I think it showed us that you need to look at cybersecurity in a broader context. As I also said during my intervention, I think cybersecurity has become a geopolitical, also in a geopolitical sense, a weapon in a war. So, and we've seen it unfold here. We've seen lots of attacks, but we have also seen that the different actors within Europe have been ready and have been resilient and aware of where to protect their networks. So I think we realize that a war also can affect our networks, both in the cybersecurity sense, but also in the physical sense. So networks being destroyed and need to be rebuilt, and so you need to see all networks in a more holistic way, and that gave us as I was saying, a wake-up call.
Okay.
I may just jump in for a
Sure.
second, Lorenzo. So I think first it's true that the digital resilience starts with digital literacy. So it's also a matter of education, not only a matter of digital tools. But maybe we have 8 minutes left. But I think that what would be important also now is to give a floor to Deputy Minister Bornyakov to say what actually does Ukraine expect from the international community, European Union, to assist the digital infrastructure of Ukraine with, because we presented what already has been successfully implemented. But I think that there's much more to be done, and I think it's a good floor to say it, and maybe then all of us will think what we could do on top what has been done.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of, thank you, Anatoly. So I think we have some of their immediate needs and some strategic needs. We can split them into, I think, two parts. Some of them are intangible, and some of them, of course, are tangible. So, as I mentioned before in my speech, we think that European Union, including all organizations outside in the US and other countries, must increase tension on Russian economy. I think that I think that what they're doing is because they since 2014 they felt I don't know, unpunished for the act of annexing Crimea, and they assume that while they have this gas and pipe oil, and they have a market to sell, and it's so hard to refuse from this energy source, they can do whatever they want. And we require what we expect, and by the way, it's been going well for it's a unity from all the European countries that this cannot be tolerated in the 21st century in a civilized world. And other part is that we are suffering from destroying our digital infrastructure, including all the, I don't know, like headquarters with that were dealing with cyber defense, and we in desperate need in surveillance, in intelligence information, in just regular computers, access to equipment. So this is what Ukraine needs right now. A lot of equipment, because I know numerous cases where they would just destroy it with ballistic rockets, and we have to restore it somehow in order to fight back. Without equipment, we cannot fight back. If our president appealed to the whole world to give us weapons, because without weapons we can't defend ourselves. So the same logic applies here to the cyber front, and the cooperation with their correspondent authorities on the cyber front in the States, in Europe, in other allied countries, it's also important to us. I know there's work in progress, so we have to have more access to the data on incidents, on how to struggle with those incidents, with the experience of those people, and again, the correspondent equipment to install it on Ukrainian in Ukrainian digital infrastructure, so we will be able to protect ourselves. Ukraine now can barely produce anything. Like a majority of business shut down at this point. So and even it would have been working. It would take time to produce this equipment. So for that reason, we created United 24 Fund, which was announced by our president, and it was his initiative to help not just military, but also on humanitarian front, on the digital front. So the digital aspect of United 24 Fund is also a digital component of defense, and there's a group of people already working on this issue. So that would be, I can't say that would be all, but this is what on top of my head. Thank you so much.
Okay, Alex. Liz?
Yes, I just wanted to add, the Commission is working together with the digital industries on exactly the equipment deliveries to Ukraine, and we know there are a lot of urgency there. I know some operators are doing it on a bilateral basis. But I just wanted to also touch upon a point Minister Bunyakar touched on, and that's the sharing of intelligence. And I think that's actually one of the most important things here, that we share the data, we share what we see, and we work together on defending the infrastructure and the networks. I think that it counts for all of Europe, but it counts especially in a situation where we had the wars in Ukraine.
Okay, thanks. There are, I don't see question in the chat.
Yeah, no, there was one question actually in the chat from Sviet. I don't know if we have time to address it.
Sure.
And so if you want to unmute yourself, or I can also read it out.
Zvia, do you want to, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Sviat Zima from Georgia. It's an honor to be here with you. I manage digital diplomacy task force based between Georgia and Boston. I also wanted to thank to Alex and everyone in Ukraine who's doing whatever we all should be doing. My question is to Alex, seeking more clarity about what, in terms of digital diplomacy, plan to limit and weaken Russia's disinformation against Ukraine, in Ukraine and globally. Is there any specific avenues that you see should be addressed additionally?
Well, first of all, thank you for the question, but I just have 1 minute left. I have to go to another call. And to address your question, we're doing a lot with the private sector, and this includes a strong cooperation with the Google, with Meta, with Twitter, with other tech giants in social media, so I think it's going fine, and even more than we expected. I mean, this support is tremendous, and if your question about what we can ask for more, is that correct? Yeah. Well, I honestly, there were requests like completely stops like Apple Store or close accounts for Russian in all social media, and Mikhail Fedorov actually appealed with that, but at some point we realized that there's still it's still also a window for us to tell them what's really going on. So I think we reached a point where tech giants are formed teams, and they specifically looking on every issue, like they lifted and changed their policy on blocking or content on Ukrainian Russian war, and they do this more personal cases. They research them. They're not just looking on algorithm. They're not taking algorithm as a base anymore. So well, I don't know. So far, it's really going well. I just can't think about what's the real issue, and it's urgent to figure it out. So everything's fine.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Take care. I just really need to go. Thank you so much.
Our time is up, and so I would like to thank everybody for participating, the deputy ministers, all the panelists. I think it was very interesting. I would say that probably, as Lisa was saying, maybe it's not a situation caused not for game change. It's not a game changer, but definitely I think we should learn from the Ukrainian experience and definitely moving towards increasing our cybersecurity posture in the EU. Okay, and so walk the talk. Okay, bye bye. See you soon.